Hello everybody, and welcome to our very first episode of Sighting of the Day with Heritage Tours and Safaris. My name is Jon Webster. I've been a guide with Heritage Tours for roughly 7 years. Some of the viewers out there might recognize me from being on tour with me. Others I hope to meet in the near future. I've been a guide at Heritage for roughly 7 years. Guiding throughout the Zululand and Maputaland area has given me great area knowledge, which I like to use on my safaris to make my guest experience a little better. Before we get to the sighting of the day, just to give you guys a little background knowledge on what's happening in South Africa at the moment. We are still under an extended period of lockdown due to the coronavirus. It is 4 months and counting at the moment, so we really are missing the bush. We have not been able to do any safaris to date, and so we thought we would bring you your daily wildlife fix in a different manner by making these little episodes we call Sighting of the Day. We've had some fantastic sightings on our safaris over the past year, and yes, obviously the lucky guests on the vehicle got to experience them, but we'd like to share them with everybody. And so we are going to handpick some of the really nice sightings we've had. We have gathered a lot of footage, and we are going to run you guys through the footage and explain a little bit about why this is such a special area to come and visit, and also what you guys can come and expect to see on our safari tours. So let's get to it. I know I'm setting the bar pretty high by doing this on our very first episode, but I thought, seeing as it is our first episode, we might as well start it off with a bang. Our first sighting that we'll be discussing is one of a very elusive animal, especially in our area of the country, the leopard. It is often one of the first requests we as guides get from our guests in the morning when we ask them what they would like to see. Now, I know that there are some areas in South Africa or in parts of Africa where you can go to, and leopards are quite prolific. They're able to see them on safaris on a daily basis, perhaps even 2 or 3 times a day if you're really lucky. But each area is quite different in what it can offer guests and guides. And so for our area, we are generally known for some other animals, more like rhino, elephants, leopards not being the most common animal we see, although they could be quite common. It's just probably not that easy to find them here, as they are not as habituated to vehicles here. We guide in national parks, so our parks are much larger in size, and the road networks are not as extensive or as vast. So sometimes certain animals like leopards who are particularly shy may not encounter a vehicle for days, even weeks on end. And that makes them very skittish when they do see vehicles, as they have not been accustomed to them, or perhaps grown as habituated to them. Nonetheless, there's always a very good chance of spotting anything special when you do go into the bush, and that's why this sighting in particular I find so special. To start off, it was a very miserable day. It was grey, overcast skies, rainy, drizzling rain, as we do get sort of late spring, early summer in this area, and it can really chill you down to the bone if you're on an open vehicle or just outdoors for an extended period of time. So admittedly, I was a little bit nervous as to how the day would go. Before picking up the guests, we went around and we prepared the vehicle, we packed blankets, raincoats, we did as much as we possibly could to make the guests as comfortable as possible. The rest really is up to the guest and their attitude. Fortunately, this morning I was quite lucky to pick up guests that had the sort of nonchalant attitude of, hey, well, it's raining, there's nothing we can do about the weather, let's just go out there and make the best of the day. And that for me already set the tone for the day as being one that will be successful no matter what we see. So everybody was laughing nervously as we drove towards the gate, as they all felt the wind chill for the first time, thinking probably to themselves, what are we in for? We entered the park. We spent the morning driving around in the rain and the mud. We discussed a lot of plants, general animals that we saw along the way, but no fireworks, I would say, at least in the morning section. As we got to know the guests, I learned that some of them had been very interested and also involved in the wildlife and conservation fields in their home countries. One gentleman actually worked for the US Fish and Wildlife industry in the States, so he spent his career in the bush as well studying animals. His daughter had just graduated from university as a wildlife biologist, and this was their special trip to celebrate her graduation. So we already hit it off, and we had a lot in common and a lot to talk about, which is, you know, often what people forget on safaris. It's not always only about the animals, but also the people that we meet and the shared experiences we may have. Nonetheless, we drove all the way up through the eastern shores of the iSimagaliso Wetlands Park. We went through some of the grassland and forested sections, eventually made it up to the beach. At the beach, some of the guests were brave enough to roll up their trouser legs and take a short walk into the ocean. No one was brave enough to actually go in completely. We had a wonderful and fantastic lunch, some great discussions had, and that's when everybody decided that we're happy. We are happy with the day as it's progressed, and we are ready to go home. Nobody was expecting what was going to happen next. About halfway between the beach and the Bangazi Gate, which is the exit of the park leading towards St. Lucia town, one of my guests indicated that he might have spotted something walking through the fairly sort of waist-high shrubbery and tall grass. Leopards are very hard to see on a good day, so this gentleman definitely had hawk eyes to be able to spot this leopard walking through the grass with only really the top of its back sticking out and a little bit of its tail on a very dark and dreary looking day. So all credit goes to him. Not even I managed to spot it at first. So immediately we noticed that it was a leopard. When we stopped the vehicle, we tried to see more or less where and what direction this cat was going into, so we could position ourselves as best as possible without disturbing the cat or scaring it away. Me obviously knowing full well how difficult it is to find these animals here. I noticed a little game path coming out onto the road, and from experience knowing that these animals generally tend to follow these little pathways in the bush, positioned the vehicle about 10 meters back from the exit of this pathway onto the road, thinking, or at least hoping, the animal would come out at this pathway. And lo and behold, it did. The drama only started then. As the cat managed to clear the grass and we had a full profile of this beautiful big tomcat, which is what we call a male leopard, a tom if you didn't know, we were just mesmerized. But looking in my rearview mirror, I noticed a small private passenger vehicle zooming down the road behind me, and my thoughts instantly turned to gloom. I thought this vehicle was going to speed past us, notice the leopard, slam on the brakes, hit reverse, and that is a surefire way of chasing an animal off into the bush. We braced ourselves, the vehicle passed us and kept driving, and we were all astounded at how they did not notice this very large male leopard standing right next to the road. And I must say, we probably felt a little bit guilty at having it all to ourselves, but as I said, quite happy that the leopard did not run away. So to our luck, the leopard decides to cross the road in front of us without as much as glancing in our direction at first, which is just fantastic. Obviously, you don't want your presence there influencing its natural behavior, and that, I think, is the ultimate goal of viewing wildlife. So instead of continuing in that direction that he was walking in, he decided to come back towards the road. Whether or not he felt like showing off, or perhaps was attracted by a scent that he picked up, he felt the need perhaps to come and remark some of the old scent markings that may have been diluted or washed away by the rain. Some of the rattling cisticulars, the small birds in the background, definitely not happy with the presence of this leopard, as they do feed on almost anything. As guides, we often rely on the alarm calls of other animals, including antelope, monkeys, and birds, to notify us of the presence of leopards. So always good to listen out for the birds. So after one final rub up against the bush to apply more scent and a final scent spray. He was done gracing us with his presence and continued on his day by disappearing into the forest once again. Well, there we go, everybody. That was the first sighting of the day. I myself felt very privileged of being able to share that with my guests. And if there's a lesson to be learned from the sighting of the day, it's never to discount the bad weather days in the park. Many times you might look out the window and decide, nah, I'd rather stay in bed or go to the movies or do something different. And yes, perhaps the cold, windy, rainy days may not always be as productive with all the animals, as a lot of them may be feeling a little cold and heading into the thickets to find some shelter from the wind and to get some warmth. But you never know whether or not that day would have been the day where you would have seen a sighting like this. So please guys, stay tuned as we bring you more Sightings of the Day episodes, as well as some other exciting projects we're working on in introducing St. Lucia and the surrounding game parks to you, so that you can plan your future travels and know what to expect when visiting St. Lucia and joining us on safari. We hope that the travel industry will be given the opportunity to open up soon. We are very hard at work at implementing strict health and safety protocols, following the strict guidelines provided to us by our industry leaders as well as our national government. We're holding thumbs, crossing our fingers, as some may say, that soon enough we will be able to take you on safari and you will be able to get footage like this, or at least share the experience that we were able to share with so many before, once again in the near future. Till next time, goodbye.